Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and KISMA. I'm Nick, and today we are continuing with How to Shape Your Reality, Part 2.
Welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and KISMA, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set. Hello, KISMA.
Well, hello there, Nick.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm sitting in the studio with wires.
I know.
So we're just going to name it the Wire Illumination Podcast Studio.
Wired. It makes me kind of excited. Like, it's like cool
you love it.
Things. You can do all kinds of cool stuff
it's
with
like
it.
It's like a geeky tech place right here. And the desk that goes up and down is very nice too.
It is totally a geeky tech place though. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. I'm happy to rock out with my geek out. Yeah.
I'm good.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. So here we are, part 2 on how to shape your reality. I do want to just give a little recap from last week. Basically, we're breaking this down into 4 principles, you might say: knowing, heart, action, and receptivity. And the knowing and the heart work together. Knowing in your mind's eye what it is you want to create, or who it is you want to be, what it is you want to manifest. It's so much more powerful when you can visualize it. If you're not a visual person, you'll get into the feeling of it, which I want everyone to do, like see it, know it, and then get into your heart and the feeling of it. Now, we also talked about how that heart place it's even a deeper knowing, a knowing plus acceptance. And I bet you've all felt it, right? When there was something where you're like, yeah, I really want this. And it just dropped in and you knew that was the right thing for you.
Yeah. It's such a powerful place. It's a real revelation, you know?
I know. But the thing is, I don't like to use the word should, but it should be that way all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the appropriate use of
when we're
should.
Working with spirit, with universe, with God, source, whatever your word is, and we get something that meets the principle of greater good, of life expansion, it should truly just be full on dropped in. What happens, as all of you know, if you've been listening to our podcast or following us, we talk a lot about that conditioned mind gets in, the lower self takes over, the subconscious takes a hold. And before you know, it's like a karmic loop. We're just spinning right there over and over and over again. So this is about waking up in a way that you are fully present to what you're doing and why you're doing it. You are in every moment fully awake and fully conscious of why you're doing something and what you're doing. And with this new level of consciousness or expanded awareness, everything will be okay because you're in your power center. You're there. You're like fully present. It's when we fall asleep. It's when we go, like I talked about last week, into the regrets of the past or the apprehension of the future. That's when we lose our power and the world starts to shape us.
I'd like to talk about that waking up.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very popular conversation. And I think sometimes it gets the idea that, you wake up to the world and all of a sudden it's like everything has to change. And I don't think that's necessarily the way it is. Like, waking up is about just waking up. It's just being aware. Like, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? What am I actually doing? Is this taking me towards my goals? Do I have goals,
Mm-hmm.
or where are those things lacking? but it also, what I think is cool about it that gets missed a lot of times is we become aware of some of the things that we do that they call the unconscious competent.
Yeah, right.
And that's really cool because everybody, and certainly so many of the listeners that I've talked to, that they have created a really beautiful amount of success in their lives already. And so this is one of the things that happens when people are like, I'm getting woke, or I'm waking up, and it's like, then they want to change everything. It's like, well, you don't need to change everything. You've been successful in a way, and we want to use the things of that really work, the things that you were unconsciously competent about that really worked for you, rather than just like, knocking the whole board over and having to start from scratch. Like, you're doing things already. We're just usually not awake to those things.
Yeah. And then it's being, to me, I just mean wake up to spirit, wake up to universe, like wake up to your own power.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a whole other level of it.
Like that's the level I'm going for. Yeah. And when we do wake up, the other thing is that, again, that false sense of self we want to remove that. We want to remove the false sense of self so that the true self comes forward.
Yeah. And absolutely.
Because it's right there. That's the interesting thing. It's already there.
Right.
We don't need to bring anything more in, everybody. The true self is there. We want to take away what is not.
Yeah, that's the cosmic state. I'm more talking about like in the relative, just that initial,
it's
like,
so boring over there.
Well, for me, it was just like, it was big though, when I was leaving Detroit Symphony and suddenly I started to kind of wake up. I'm like, is this how I really want my life to be? It was a wake up for me. I know that you experienced that when you started to decide to end your flute career and go teach yoga of all things. Like, there was an awakening there of like, wait a second, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Maybe I can do something different. I think we'll dive more into that in another episode, but that's, it's just something I think is important when we talk about this waking up.
It's true. Well, I like the cosmic waking up.
Well, yeah.
And so there's a knowing, and there's putting it in your heart in full acceptance. And then today's episode, we want to talk about action and receiving. And I'm going to reverse engineer and just touch on receiving. Per the universal laws, if there's something that you desire and you desire it because desire has this force behind it and you don't have it, somewhere you're resisting. And people hate when I say this. I'm not resisting. I want all this. The world's like against me.
I'm not resisting.
Yeah, I'm not resisting. Just move that out. And we have to look at, this is why being awake to the present moment is so important. We really do have to look at where are those subtle pings and voices and doubts and worries, like we talked about doubt a little bit last episode, that create a resistance. It's not like you're putting your hand up in front of you, but energetically, you're putting an energy of undeserving or unworthy or can't or doubt or whatever in front of you, which is resisting.
Yeah. Hiding, avoiding. And of course, I know in your courses, you always teach about the need to be right. Like, that's a super deep conversation about how that shows up. But one of the things that's really relevant here, I want to point out, is that there will be solutions and steps right in front of you that you can't see. You just can't see it because of the need to be right, that it has to be a certain way, or I have to something, right?
Yeah,
there's a something there. That's
resistance.
And that is exactly right. That's a form of resistance. It's just a real sneaky one.
It's very sneaky. So the action piece, I like to use this term magnificent action. It's action that is designed to flow and to move you towards your greater desires and manifestations. Magnificent action will be the action that you're taking with a peace of mind, with a knowing that you're working with spirit rather than arguing with spirit. It's an action that is propelled by the right attitude. And what I mean by that is, say you get your knowing, this is what I want, you're bringing it to your heart, you're accepting, and all of a sudden you're criticizing somebody else's win or jealous of somebody else's relationship. That turns it. It clouds it. All of a sudden, it's not the right energy. And so you might start working really hard to, like, whatever, meet these business goals because so-and-so has it. but it isn't with the right energy. It's coming from jealousy or resentment. So it isn't magnificent action. Proving yourself, comparison.
Proving's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of stuff. Like people have created massive success just by willing their way through.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you get to that place, you can look at other things in their life that are breaking.
Right. So one area works well, but the other 5 areas are like, whoa, you know, the wheels are coming off.
Right.
That's tough. Yeah. So there's 2 layers of the action. One is just doing the things, right? If you've listened to any amount of our podcast, you know that we're not the magical thinking, sit on your couch and manifest stuff people. You have to do the things. There are things to do the things. But the more subtle aspect that you're really talking about here is the attitude while you're in the action. That's the difference between forcing your way through and the magnificent action.
It really is. I mean, think about it. It's so easy to go to a point, maybe it's recent, where you get out of bed and you're in a funk, and the last thing you want to do is go through your day. And so you go through your day and you're in energy drain, you're in doubt, you feel like you're surviving instead of thriving. That isn't magnificent action. It's action, but it's not magnificent. When the attitude is lined up, again, with what you're knowing, with dropping it into your heart, and you have this sense of belief, and you take the next required action. And then the next action, you're going to start to see these things shift and change and wins happen, which then build your confidence. And you're like, wait a minute, this is kind of cool. When I stay focused, when I'm present to what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and when it's lined up to my desire, my goals, this actually works.
Right. It works.
It works.
It really does. So it's surprising. That's the kind of fun part about it, is like, oh, whoa, like this actually works, and we get to surprise ourselves in really beautiful ways. And the world surprises us too.
But that's the interesting thing. Again, but it shouldn't surprise us. Our shaping of reality should be just like we're calling in an order to the world, to the universe, and say, hey, this is what I want. I'll be right there to pick it up. That's the energy behind it. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I'm calling this in. I'll be there to pick it up. Just give me a couple of minutes. And of course, depending on the magnitude of your dream. But you see what I mean, everyone? We get so fighting inside our head. Well, is it true? Isn't it going to true? Like, what's going to work? What isn't? This is my order. I'm presenting to the universe, to world, to God, to source, spirit. It's a responsive nature. So if we take the action to go pick up our order, it will show up in some iteration.
Right. Yeah. That's that you mentioned there, that doubt that we were talking about last episode. Is it happening? Is it happening? Is it happening?
Yeah. It's like you plant, that thing you plant a seed, and then every morning you're digging up the seed to see if it's sprouting.
Is it sprouting?
The thing ain't
going
to sprout.
Yeah. It's going to destroy it. And that's such a great metaphor for what doubt does to us, in the action.
Right.
Is it becomes an is it? And that really speaks to such a mistrust in the laws. Like, you do have to have a certain amount of faith in it to just give yourself the benefit of the doubt, give the universe the benefit of the doubt, and say, okay, this is my understanding of how it works. Just going to assume that that's functioning for me. And if I operate on that assumption, I'll be able to see more clearly what's showing up.
Yeah.
I think that's a super important kind of attitude shift that it just kind of takes the pressure of getting it right off and lets it be a little bit more like an experiment.
Right.
You make a hypothesis. This is my assumption, and then act on that.
That's a really good point, Nick, because that assumption will lead one to continue to focus on where things are working. And if we, toss in that teaching, the RAS, the reticular activation system, or reticular activation is how I know it. And it's like, the classic example is I'm going to go buy a car and it's going to be green. and you buy a green car, and then before you know it, you're seeing all these green cars on the highway, and you were like, I didn't think anybody had a green car. You're used to seeing, you've trained your mind and you've trained your eyes to look for the green car, to see it in your mind's eye, which is an amazing way to prove this. It's like you're seeing this car in your mind's eye, and before you know it, that frequency has brought other green cars, and you're trained to see it. So when you are training yourself to work with, this might just be possible. Let's assume you're going to be focused on what is working, which is going to bring in more of the things that are working. When you're in doubt, when you're in regret or apprehension, you're going to focus on what isn't working.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying just stay up in the clouds and don't deal with what isn't working. Like, be a strategist, go into solution, not stay in problem.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Then the next assumption is that, okay, there's a challenge here. Then there is inherently a solution.
Right.
And not somewhere else, some far away. There's a solution right here, right now.
Exactly.
Right. That's a big, big difference. And it prevents the spinning, and that, like, it's exciting when you're on the trail, you're following the trail and you're like, next thing, like it gets kind of exciting. Like you're on a scavenger hunt sort of, and you start to find the things and you start to solve the little clues, and it gets more and more exciting, where if you get, really spun out and down on yourself because, you can't get one of them, like, you're stuck. And that's what you're
stuck.
saying.
You're stuck. You dig a hole, and that's what you're focused on.
Yeah, that's it.
So stay in action, the awakened action, the magnificent action. Why am I doing what I'm doing, and being present to it? So it is systematically supporting your dreams. And then back to the receptivity.
Receptivity. This is one of my favorites.
I know. Why don't you talk about this?
Receptivity is a big deal. It's a big, big deal. If you want more ease in your life, if you want things to flow better, if you want better health, if you want more energy, if you want to recover more quickly, if you want to be able to stay in your lane more easily, all these things is receptivity. We could do a whole nother series just on this. In the context of shaping your reality, receptivity is really about allowing yourself to have that. Right? It's truly being receptive to having what it is. So we talked a lot about the doubt there of, like, is it happening? Is it going to happen? What, and KISMA talked about staying out of the future, staying out of the past. And the beautiful thing about receptivity and allowing yourself to have is that it puts you firmly into the present moment. Not allow yourself to have someday, maybe, kinda, under these certain specific conditions. I allow myself to have it right now. Okay, that's a very present thing.
No conditions, right?
Yeah, right. And if you think about the energy of receptivity is so much more soft and flowing, rather than that harshness, that will, that tightness, that constriction, right? That we feel like choked off or like holding on, white knuckle and like the white knuckle ride. Like, receptivity is very soft and gentle, and it allows us to let that flow in through our lives, the energy to flow in through our bodies, right? And our mind to be more creative, receptive to what is showing up for us. Like, it's just such a huge, huge thing. And that's really where you start with it.
Right.
Super receptive and willing to have it.
And here's something you can do to actively be more receptive. Of course, aware. Always go back to that knowing of what it is you want to create, what that means to you. Notice throughout your day when someone compliments you or tries to give you something or asks if you want something, what do? Do you like, oh, no, I'm fine? Or do you like, yeah, I'd love to have that? Like, how are you actually receiving throughout the day? I'm not saying you have to say yes to everything. Like, if you don't want the ice cream, don't have the ice cream. I personally would. But it's just like, notice yourself. Do you kind of close up? Are you uncomfortable? Some of us will be more uncomfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. Where I want you to get a hold of is, are you consistently constricting when people offer you a compliment or a gift or to get you something? Because that at some level is showing you how receptive you are or are not.
Yeah. I was in a UPS store for a significant amount of time today. We were emailing, or not emailing, we were mailing a whole bunch of books to our people in one of our courses, the Quantum Prosperity Leap. And it took a while for them to go through it. And, she's just working. She's like, you can have a seat over there. I'm like, is it okay if I leave? And she's like, sure. So I went and I did some shopping. I came back, I checked in on it, and they're standing around there. They're still doing their thing. And I said, hey, I think I'm going to go get some coffee. Like, do you want anything? Right. And then all of them were like, no, we're good. But they took it seriously. And they were really nice people. And I really appreciated that about them. They're like, no, I think I'm good, but that's really nice of you to offer. And I said, great. Well, I'm going to go and get it back and come back. And when I came back, they were just wrapping up. It was perfect timing. And she's like, we usually only do this for local people. I was, a little bit out of their local territory, and they gave us 10% off.
That's great. How nice.
Yeah. And it's like, it's the receptivity to just allow those sorts of things, What I didn't get from them was, no, don't, we don't want any, it was a real clean no, like I'm good with the coffee kind of thing.
Thanks for asking.
But it was so nice, like, to see that turn around. They're like, hey, why don't you have this? It's so cool. And I was certainly receptive to that. And I just said, thank you.
Yeah. That's great. So what I'd like for everyone to do this week as you're working on shaping your reality, remember getting into the vision, what you want to create or who you want to be, the expression of your life, full acceptance into your heart and having that get into the spirit of it. And then being present to your actions. What would be helpful at the end of your day, if you did a quick introspection of the actions you took, what were necessary, what were unnecessary, what took you away from your vision, and what moved you forward towards your vision. As you do this, don't judge, just notice. It's like, oh, I watched 3 episodes of the morning show. That did not take me to my vision. It's like, okay, maybe I won't do that tomorrow. Like, just once you're aware, the pivot's really quick. When you start labeling things good, bad, right, or wrong, you then get stuck in that little quicksand, and we don't want that.
Right.
And then also take note of where you received, where you receive at a higher level, where are you getting excited to receive, and what is your own value, your own sense of value and worth at receiving at a higher level.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be all at once.
It can be step by step.
Step by step is the way, because I think if you go for, something that's just so far out of your consciousness, it's not that you can't have that. It's just that it tends to upset the apple cart in a certain way, and it makes things, it introduces a level of stress that is just not always really productive. We're all about thinking bigger and expanding yourself, absolutely, but it comes back to that heart thing. Make sure it's really right for you.
Yeah, drop in.
Yeah, let it be really right for you. Don't make it wrong, and then we can always expand from there.
Yeah, and the hashtag It's Possible energy.
That's right,
because it is.
It is.
So spend some time. Do this for you. This is a really important time on the planet for you to anchor into your own personal universe, your own cosmos, your own dreams and desires. And I'm telling you, if you follow this and you do this and you re-listen and you keep determining what it is you want, getting that to a knowing, accepting it in your heart, and taking action and receiving with so much gratitude, things will move faster than you could have ever imagined.
So be it.
So be it in full faith. Please share this episode with somebody that you know. Hey, if you're on iTunes, give us a rating, review, subscribe so our next episode pops up for you. And feel free to email us with any questions, shares, thoughts at hello@illuminationpodcast.com. And we so appreciate you. Bye-bye for now, and namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.